She's still tutoring? She probably makes more
Well,
money.
I presume I see strange cars up there a lot. She'll tell me that if I text her, she'll say, I'm tutoring now.
Linda Head.
She probably makes more money an hour than I do, though.
She makes really good, I'm sure.
I'm sure, because she's really good.
Yeah, well, so are you.
I can keep him from barking. That's what we work on. Thank you, ma'am.
26.
26.
Hello. Thank you.
All right, y'all, it's 6 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to the Historic Preservation Commission together for April 26th. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes from the last meeting?
Yes.
Can I get a motion to approve?
I move.
I got two motions over here on my right. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
All right, good to go. All right, so let's go on and dive in. Let me get back up here to the top. Good Lord, it's scrolling. All right, first up is a COA for exterior changes at 707 South Broad Street. Do we have someone here to speak to that? Just make sure that you speak right into that microphone, please, sir.
Okay. My name's Greg Cortman. I am the owner. My wife and I own the house.
Okay.
What do you want me to say?
I want you to tell us what you're planning to do or what you have done.
I think the only issues were that we replaced the vinyl siding that was on there with hardy plank, and we have new windows installed, and painted it, removed the ramp, and we had the addition put on the back and then the deck.
Oh, so you had all that done before you came up here and talked to us as well?
No, we were here before. It just turns out there were a couple of changes that were made that we weren't aware that needed to be approved.
Door and window, right?
The siding and the windows.
Okay. So there shouldn't be a problem with the hardy plank, I wouldn't think.
Yeah.
My understanding is he changed the windows.
Yes, ma'am, the windows is the other thing too. It looks like they're 4/1 now. When they, for the district down there, they were supposed to be 6/6, right?
Right.
Is that right, Mr. Kelly?
For the mill houses, 6/6 was the general standard,
All right.
but this is not your typical shotgun design.
Is this the one that has plastic on the windows right now,
No, the plastic has been removed.
since Sunday?
Yes, the painting is done. I probably have more modern pictures if you'd like.
Okay, because I rode by there and it had plastic all over the windows and I could tell it was 4/1. Yeah.
Do you have pictures of the rest, like the rest of the windows, the original windows on the house?
Ma'am, you're gonna have to come up here and talk in the microphone if you want to talk to us.
The original windows for the original house and the addition had been replaced at some point, probably in the 70s, with the storm windows. They were just the 1/1. And I don't know who sold who on that deal, but it was not a good deal.
Ladies, questions?
I think it looks nice. I walked up on the porch and did everything.
Made yourself at home?
Made myself right at home. Big cup of coffee, yeah.
I think the major problem is the fact that he came to us already and didn't ask about the windows. And then that led to the person across the street putting in the wrong windows because he'd put in the wrong windows. So we didn't approve the one across the street. So to me, we shouldn't approve the one that he's already put in. That's my contention.
Can we put, can a snap-in be put on this bottom section to make it like a 4/4?
Do what?
Can we put a snap-in on this other section?
It's supposed to be 6/6.
Mr. Kelly just,
Well, I'm not one of your historic expertise, but it really depends on the style of the house, what window's appropriate for the style of the house. So if you could speak to that, that'd be great.
Well, I feel like a lot of these mill district houses, you know, they change windows throughout time. I mean, people just may do. So you don't always, not every house in that district is gonna be 6/6. You know, you might have some that are a little bit different. And without having any photos, this is what makes it difficult. When people come to us, you know, after the fact, or when things are done later, we don't have any photos of what was there originally. It's very difficult to decide, well, what was there originally? We don't really know. You know, and we can guess, and we could say 6/6, but that might not be the case. It might not have been 6/6. You know, it's really, I mean, your guess is as good as mine. And so it just makes it difficult when these things are done after the fact.
And we know that.
I think if like Savannah has a standard and they have a list of different windows that are appropriate, it doesn't always have to be 6/6, but sometimes they can be, you know, you can have different, you know, different styles, but they have a list of windows that are appropriate as long as they follow a historic pattern, you know? And I feel like as long as it follows that historic pattern, then it would be okay. But if it's not historic at all, then it shouldn't be there.
which the storm windows were, of course, obviously not
Right.
historic, only because of age, but.
Right, it looks way more period correct now than it did a couple of months ago with the storm windows and the vinyl siding.
Well, right across the street from you, there is a shotgun house, and it
they're
does have
white.
6/6. But that house is
1/1.
also much more narrow in the front.
Right.
And this house is wider, and I think these windows look very nice on them. They go, to me, with the house.
They don't bother me at all.
We like them.
Y'all have anything else?
Wait a minute. It was just it's 1/1. Okay, thank you.
And I can dig up pictures of how the windows that were in the house looked before we started renovation, but
With your storm windows?
yes, but obviously, yeah, I don't have what it looked like in 1920 when it
I
was
mean, I feel
built.
like this is better than the storm window.
Oh, yeah.
Any
I
day
feel
of
like
the week.
we've made an advancement there, so,
Yeah.
I mean, that's just,
Anybody from the public have any comments on the windows down on the corner? All right, can I get a motion on approving the windows and the hardy plank siding as well, because that does fit with what needs to be there.
I so move.
So I got one in favor of, can I get a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor of granting the COA, say aye. Aye. That was 4. Any opposition? Ms. Fay, did you vote?
I oppose, but that's okay.
We got one opposition, that was Ms. Fay. 4-4, or 4-4 and 1 against. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
See Laura. All right, let's go on to the next one. Let me do my scrolling. This thing is slow today. We have number 2 is request for demolition at 140 South Broad Street.
I've got, I don't know, how do y'all have it set up here? Y'all see what's up there, or y'all need packets? I printed these.
We got them here,
got
but
'em.
we got it here we can look at. But if you got a packet, I always,
Some hard copies here for y'all.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Didn't know exactly how.
thanks, sir.
Be better for our files and we won't have to print it.
All right, good evening. My name is Wes Peters, work for Reliant Homes and subsidiary. The property is actually in 81 Investment Company LLC, just a subsidiary. But here today to talk to you guys about the actual demolition of the existing building at 140 South Broad Street. Okay, basically, as I said, we're going to discuss the demo of the existing building and then discuss my new building concept. As you can see right here, this is the existing site, 140 South Broad Street. Currently, is occupied and is ran as a braiding shop there. The building has been there since 1970, was built, doesn't really fit in with the downtown historic area, doesn't have any aesthetic feel to blend, it's functional, but, our vision and what we foresee for the site is something new, but also something that would give a historic feel and also lend itself to a more residential and combination of residential and commercial space for the site there. I just, laid out a few just pictures of the existing area and a few other angles of, it's just not pleasing to the eye at all, no matter which angle you look at it. You've got the corner there of Washington and Broad Street. The building just looks, quite dwarf there. And then coming up from the rear from Wayne Street there, you've got the parking lot that's in pretty bad disrepair. And then I did a site plan there so you can see it as it compares to the other buildings in the historic corridor right there. So just kind of a good overview of the existing site as it is. This is the plat, just to look at the site as it's currently laid out per a surveyor. You can see the parking there, you can see the site. It's 0.291 acres, goes full length from Broad Street back to Wayne Street, running along Washington Street there. So this is our new concept. We're excited about it. We do have two different visuals here. One on the left side is a 3-story. The bottom floor is approximately 3,000 square feet. Then you'll see the 2 additional floors would be residential. The one on the right would be a 2-story concept with the same 3,000 square foot commercial space on the bottom floor and then residential up top. This is just 2 different color renderings. We haven't decided just yet as far as the brick color, the final concepts, but in general, this is the look that we would, we are very, pleased with and would like to see on that corner.
And where did you said you have 2 concepts? I'm just seeing the 3-story. Where is the?
It's right there, right beside it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right there. I mean, from the pictures itself, it doesn't look, there's not that big of a difference. But yeah, there is the 2-story and the 3-story. You see the 3 different, well, the bottom floor, then you see the 2 additional floors on the left side, then just the 1-story on the right side.
So the 3-story has more apartment residential?
That's right, yeah. The 3-story would have, 5 units. I'll get to it in just a second, but the residential, there would be 5 units on each floor. So here we go. This is just a layout of how, just in general, what it would look like on the floor plan. Basically, on the left, you'll see the commercial space, approximately 3,000 square feet. This can be divided into 2 spaces if need be. It would just kind of, we would leave it open to see what the demand is. Maybe go with one space, or if the demand was there for 2 and it made sense, we could divide it up. On the right side, you'll see the layout, current layout just of the residential space. We've got a 1 2-bedroom unit, and then we've got 4 1-bedroom units with the 2 1-bedroom units of 720 square feet, and then 2 1-bedroom units of 670 square feet. So they would mirror each other. The 2nd and 3rd floor residential would mirror each other identically. And then this would be the new proposed parking lot layout in the rear. So I know there may be some concern, obviously, of height, size, depth of that nature. So I did want to talk about that a little bit. As you can see, the building in between, do I have a pointer on this thing? I don't know. Anyway, okay, so my existing building is highlighted in pink there, or my new building, proposed new building is in pink. The one directly adjacent to that is where I believe it's a Reliable Finance and a boutique.
Tattoo place?
I'm sorry?
Is that the tattoo place?
Oh, I gotcha. Yes. Okay, so this one right here. So basically, the unit there is approximately 48 feet from front to rear. The one next to it up here is 71 feet from front to rear, and then our new proposed would be 110 feet. So the existing one as it is currently was only, I believe it was 30 feet, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see real quick.
It wasn't much.
Yeah, it was, sorry, I thought I had that number there, but I was like 30 feet. So it would come back considerably more than what was there originally. So, and then you'll see the parking lot, you know, currently, let me just go to this right here. You can see the existing parking lot. It's a bit of a mess, and I think we've all been by this to see what it is. Nothing's been done to this site, and I mean, no telling how long. I've talked to Mr. Briscoe that owns the adjacent properties, and he is on board, you know, in you know, some type of joint efforts there to repair that. As the lot, as you see it, you see the dotted line there, that is the property line. So it really splits that parking lot in two. So, you know, we're all about being more communal and working to, you know, join the city and just, you know, having it as a proposed parking for any community, you know, businesses, walkability to be able to just park there. We do, depending on if we do this 2 or 3 story, we would probably specify or allow at least 1 unit per resident as a reserved space, you know, for those residents. I think that's only acceptable for someone, you know, either buying or renting that space from us. They do have 1 reserved spot, you know, right there on site. So, but I think they've done a great job as far as the layout of this. Yes, it does reduce the amount of parking that was there, you know, currently, but it's just a hub, you know, it's just just like I said, it's a bit of a mess the way it's laid out here. And this is not the final, but, you know, it does put some more curbing in there and aesthetically just pleasing overall, as far as a good concept for that parking area back there. So this is so height requirements or height in general, just talking about that for you guys. The in comparison, you know, looking at the 3-story, in general, when we were looking at it originally, we didn't think that, you know, really that we could go that high just because of the height visual. But in looking at the hotel, you know, kind of adjacent, kind of catty corner across the street, you know, we're looking at that, and Phil, you know, on that corner, you know, it's a you know, corner that can, I think, handle it with it being on that corner. If it was in the middle of town or somewhere by itself, or, you know, a building that amongst the others on, you know, both sides, it might look a little out of place. But I think being on that corner, it would lend itself to be able to have that height. So the current, I'll just be honest with you, I just got these 3-story renderings today. So the existing height building for the 3-story right now is at 42 feet.
How many?
I'm sorry, 42 feet. 42 feet. And Brad, are we at 35 feet as a max? Okay.
35.
So I did get back with my architect, and he's got the ceiling heights within these buildings are the highest at, you know, max like 14 foot or something like that. So he's bringing those down, and so hopefully we can get much closer to that 35 feet. Don't know if I'll be able to get exactly at that number, but I am working on that. Like I said, unfortunately I just got these today, but we do understand that 35 foot is the limit, so we'll work with that and understand that. But I think, I mean, is the hotel 35 feet? Do we know?
I think it may actually be slightly taller.
Okay.
It's existing non-conforming.
Sure.
And, yeah, we're actually working too, at the same time as you'll be designing this, on potentially looking at a story limitation rather than a height limitation change.
Gotcha.
So that may occur simultaneously.
Okay,
With your
great.
design.
Great, thank you. So with that said, I just want you guys to understand that, you know, we understand we want everything to, you know, to have a great feel in downtown Monroe and be aesthetically pleasing. So just know that we are considering, you know, those options and definitely taking that into consideration. In summary, you know, like I said previously, you know, the site itself is due for a makeover. we feel that this project will be mutually beneficial. It's a great project for ourselves, but for the city, as the city continues to work toward promoting in-town living, city work, and just bringing a combination of retail and residential to this site, we just feel will be mutually beneficial for all. So with that said, I don't even know if I really said, but obviously my whole intent here is to demo that 140 South Broad Street. So any questions you guys have?
I looked at that property to buy it, and I decided that the structure was not redeemable for the money that you would put in it. And in my mind, it needed something grander built in the place of it. I think when that was built, it was built shoddily. So it would be very difficult, in my mind, to restore it or make it into something that would be historically acceptable. So I think it's a good thing that you're going to change.
I think that's a great look.
To me, it's a blight.
I think it looks, I like the bookend look with the hotel on the opposite
Right.
caddy corner. I really,
Especially if you keep the red brick.
yes.
Yeah,
Right,
I
right.
like the red brick.
Yeah.
And will you have elevator access for people? or-
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, whether the 2 or 3 story, definitely elevator. And as far as a time frame on this, I haven't. I don't think I touched on that, but once this is approved, or once we finalize everything as far as details on the demo and the actual building itself, we're basically are just waiting on pricing and for the job itself, job costs, and then we plan to get started as soon as possible. So I'm saying within 4 to 6 months, hopefully.
So actually, we won't be voting on the look tonight. We're only going to vote on the demolition. Is that correct?
Right, the plan for what to be done with the property was required as part of the demolition. It'll be approved separately.
That's right.
Well, I move that we accept it for demolition.
Got to ask these folks out here first.
All right.
Is there any comment from the public about tearing down 140 South Broad Street? It's my understanding, Ms. Jones, we have to offer a reason for approving the demolition, and you,
I believe that the structure as it exists is non-contributing to our historic district. And I think that's reason enough for demolition.
I get behind that too.
I think so too. I mean, it used to be the Troy Theater. That would have been more historical than what was shoddily built back. And so I agree.
Actually, before the Troy Theater, there was a brick house there.
Really?
Harry Brown grew up there,
Really?
but we have no pictures.
Oh,
Have one picture from his front porch, but it was a red brick house, 2-story.
let's keep the red brick then.
Any comments from the public? If not, can I get a motion for demolition at 140 South Broad Street?
I move that we so approve.
All right, I got one yes in favor. Do I have a second? Ms. Jane says yes. All in favor because it is non-contributing to the historic downtown, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
COA for a side yard fence at 506 East Church Street.
Oh, pooey, mine went out.
I've got it here if you want to give Miss Jane one, her iPad. Miss Jane, one out. Thank you.
All right, I'm Patrick Stewart. This is my wife Jordan, and good thing you got this microphone. My raspy voice. I just got off the football field, but I'm a teacher and football coach. She's a teacher as well, and tutor. And so we're looking to do a fence on our side yard at 506 East Church Street. Existing right now is a privacy fence around the yard, just not on this side of the house.
Right.
This is also our first time speaking, so please bear with me. I'm sure there will be many more in the future. We also grew up in Monroe our entire lives. Our families live here. We got married 3 years ago. We love Monroe. We hope one day to have kids here. I want to start by saying we really honestly had no clue that that there was a fence ordinance in place. This is in the back of the house, so it doesn't go to the road by any means. I want to start by saying there actually used to be a natural barrier of azaleas, bushes, small magnolia trees that separated the two houses on our property line with our neighbor. I don't think that he liked that, so he actually came through with some equipment and took all of that down, which kind of exposed the back side of our house. We do love the historic district, and we really did love that natural barrier. I think that he wanted more parking for his cars, camper, trailer, etc. So we started work on the privacy fence. We really did not think that there was an ordinance on that. We started work on the privacy fence about a month ago when we realized that we had done something wrong and that we actually were supposed to get approved on that. We halted putting that up. We stopped. We did not go back out there because that was never our intention to go and work on that without getting that approved. Inside of the packet, actually, if you go to the back page, the couple back pages, those are actually other 8-foot fences that are on East Church Street, the street that our home is on. So all of those, one actually across the street and two others just a little bit down, but still in that historic district, all of which are on East Church Street. Sorry about my printer ink too. It was just black and white. But anyways, thank you so much for your time. We do really appreciate what you guys do, and we do love Monroe.
Any questions? I mean, I'm just gonna say it, we approve these fences all the
Oh,
time.
I've been by and drove by. I'm looking at this example. You don't plan to come any further toward
No,
the
ma'am.
street, isn't that correct?
No, ma'am. So, the fence stops right at the front of the house, and it really, I just want to go ahead and put that out there. We do rent this house out, and so we thought it would be a great idea to have that for us, but also for the neighbor, just a great privacy fence. Like I said, we loved the natural barrier that was there. It was taller than this. It was probably 10 feet or so. We really did love the natural barrier there. But obviously, since that is not the case or that is not there anymore, we do want something that would just make us feel more comfortable and also just more privacy for whether it's guests come or us there, whether we're at the pool, whatever we're doing. It's just kind of, we just wanted the privacy. We plan on being in Monroe a long time.
Right.
Do you how are you going to finish it off? Is it going to be natural or painted or?
Yeah, it's going to be natural. We're not painting it a crazy color. If anything, a light stain.
And you can see, I think it's on the back page, the cap and trim, it'll have that finished look.
Yeah, it's not even going to have the picket look where you see kind of the 6 foots that look cheap. It's going to have, it's going to look like a nice fence. It's really going to be an addition. And it's not going to the road by any means. It will stop at just really in the backyard and
Okay.
the side.
There is a fence in the back. I drove and visited your house as well the other day.
You gonna get shot.
I won't get shot, I really am. But,
You're fine. Come on.
somebody was going swimming, so I just, okay. But anyway, there is a much shorter fence in the
Yes,
very
it's
back.
Yes, ma'am.
So that was my only real concern there, was this is 8 feet and that's 6, and it just sort of drops off like that.
So that fence was there, yes, ma'am, when we bought the house. But yes, this is going to be an 8-foot fence that starts at the front of the house and goes to the back. And like I said, there are multiple reasons that we decided to do, wanting to do an 8-foot instead. When you go into the house, historic homes, you're on a crawl space, so you're, over the windows, you're already elevated another 2 or 3 feet. So really, it's still kind of that privacy measure.
Yeah, I understand why you want to put the 8-foot fence.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, and
And the lay of the land as well, you can see, it's not up and down, it's pretty flat, so there won't be jut outs or anything like that.
yeah, and our goal was to do this really to benefit both sides. We really do like our neighbors, and we have always been very friendly, and so that.
I don't think that this fence detracts from the integrity of the
Not one
site at
bit.
all.
Not one bit.
Way, way back.
I'm okay with it.
It looks, from what I saw, it looks nice.
Do we have any comments from the public about the fence at 506 East Church Street? Hi.
My name is Zach Johnson. This is my wife, Sarah Johnson. We are the owners and residents at 512 East Church Street, right next door to the Airbnb that they were speaking on. Personally, we think it's pretty disappointing, disheartening to see the interruption of historic preservation, especially for business purposes.
I think that's the issue for us. One, our campers parked in the backyard, but I understand.
Here, right here, we can't hear you.
There are our campers actually parked in the backyard. It's not parked out front. But our issue with it is that, yes, there was somewhat of a natural barrier at one point, but that hadn't been maintained in many years. That needed to be controlled. It will continue to grow back up again. But an 8-foot fence doesn't put privacy between us and our neighbor. It puts 8 feet of privacy between us and different people every few days. It is an Airbnb. We don't have a set standard everyday neighbor. It changes every few days. And I have young children. I have a 6 and 7-year-old. I have no idea what's on the other side of that 8-foot fence. And for us, that's uncomfortable. And it appears the fence is going to have the less, I guess you would say, attractive side facing us. And at least if it is going to have to be an 8-foot fence next to us, I think it would be appropriate for that side to face their property, not us.
What's the code on that, the way of fence here in town?
There's not one. Typically, the finished or the smooth side is out, but that's not a requirement of building a fence. My next door neighbor, which is not in the city, did the exact same thing. So I'm looking at the posts and the beams.
I am in the city, and my next door neighbor did the same thing.
Yep. So there's no code on that.
So, those two houses have been next to each other for 123 years. There's never been a barrier. I mean, Wes's dad and his aunt own the house. Sarah's family has owned the house
It's
for
the
40
house
years.
I grew up in.
Sarah learned to swim in the pool. My daughter learned to swim in the pool. We don't want a fence. We want a neighbor. You know, and the fence isn't the answer. And to your point, a 6-foot fence would look a lot better. An 8-foot fence, I mean, I've had people come up to me on the soccer field say, hey, why are you building a Jurassic Park fence next to you? I mean, it looks a little bit ridiculous.
But 8 foot is within what the city says we can have, right?
Anything over 7 feet has to be engineered if it's not typical building practices. The 8-foot dog-eared fence, board fence would be perfectly fine as far as design goes, I mean, structurally.
So what is the point of the Airbnb and that's allowed in the historic district?
We don't have regulations on Airbnb because we have so few in the city. If it, proliferates, we'll probably address that at some time. But currently, I think the only issue on the table is appropriateness or any disruption to the historic district that this might or might not cause.
Integrity of the site.
Yes.
You had a rebut that you wanted to? Please.
I did just want to say that we have been very kind with our neighbors about this, and that we really wanted to do this because we do realize right now with, our current situation, our jobs, that the goal is to be back in Monroe, but I did just want to say we wanted to do this not just for privacy for us, but also for them. It would make more sense to have a fence up if that's something that possibly frustrates them. It would make, right now it's just wide open, it would make sense on both sides to have the fence.
I mean, I live in a historic area and I'm fenced in. I get it. Yeah. I get it. So Thank you. Taking into account what's been said, what do you ladies recommend? I personally don't have a problem with it.
Have a problem with it.
So, I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, it's theirs.
I'm looking at both sides, and they said they would be okay with the 6-foot fence. And I know how it is to be at odds with neighbors. I would go with the 6-foot fence.
Well,
That's just me.
My concern is the 6-foot fence is not gonna hide the campers.
No, it's not.
And if there have campers, and I've seen the campers, I know they're there.
Our camper is all the way in the back of our lot. It's all the way in the back of our lot, that's where it stays.
One at a time. It's just like class, one at a time.
That's where it stays. The other point is, I mean, it would have been nice for the owner of the house to show up. They just maintain the house. I mean, that's just a common courtesy for the owner of the house to show up to speak on the.
You talking about?
Who is the owner?
Just to clarify on that, the owner of the house is us, it's just an LLC for us, so.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
I
what.
didn't understand.
They are the owners of the house, and they're having an LLC.
And they are here. He didn't think they were the owners.
Right. They own it. It's in an LLC, which we have all over town. So back to it. I mean, I can't make a motion because I'm sitting behind the big thing. But can I get a motion? I don't have a problem with it.
Jane looks like she needs to.
Well, I know, I'm thinking. Could you compromise and do a 7-foot fence? I mean, I know the campers, I saw them too. And if you've got a Airbnb over here, they're not pleasing to people staying over there. And they are in your backyard. You're correct, and that's where they need to be. So, and you've got a big backyard, so I don't know if when I saw them Sunday, they were right next to the fence, so that I could see them, because the fence has not been completed. And you've got a lot of area way in the back, that you could move the campers. So could you move the campers back there?
Yes, ma'am. The camper stays in the backyard. When we get ready to go camping, we'll pull it out maybe 3 or 4 days before we leave, and we'll park it there 3 or 4 days when we get home to unload it, and then we'll pull it in the back. It stays in the backyard. It has a pad that it stays on. It has power ran to it back there. It stays in the backyard.
How much construction have you done on this fence? How far down the property line is the fence? A lot?
No.
We're pretty far, I mean, all the posts are in, and then you call them rails, the 2x4s are on the.
Set for 8-foot height already.
Yeah, we just haven't put the actual, but we already have set the post for the 8-foot. And I do want to just add that for the last year, the camper has been parked on the fence line. It was moved forward, but it was moved back, but still on the fence line. So I believe like 3 or 4, maybe last week
Those
we
pictures
moved it.
date back to, 2 months, so.
Well, I mean, I'm of the persuasion it's your property. If you want to put up a fence and have privacy, that's okay, as long as it's as long as it meets what historic guidelines are. But I'm just one vote.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's.
As far as the, like I said, the cap and trim looks very clean look. We did the posts every 6 feet to be even sturdier, because,
Yeah.
as fences get taller, they tend to, so we did every 6 feet. The typical engineer or contractor would do every other post 8 feet. So we did every 6 for sturdiness, and, I mean, it's gonna look great, so.
It's an attractive fence. It is.
And we're not going to paint it orange or anything like that. We really take pride in our home and always cutting the grass.
And you have a pool in your backyard, is what you were saying?
It's been there, yeah.
Right, but you
for
have a
like
pool, so you're
maybe
trying to get
20. Yeah, I
privacy
mean,
for the pool.
whether we
Well,
are at,
There's a chain link fence in there too, that
Yes,
goes
ma'am.
around the pool, or up to the back of
yes,
the
ma'am,
house.
in the backyard. Yeah, I mean, I'm at the house, 2 to 4 times a week. I clean the house, we cut the grass, we maintain the pool. We're very, we really love this home. We love Monroe. Right now, our job has taken us about 45 minutes, but, we love this place. This is where our families are, so for the time being, that's what we're doing. But, yeah, whether we're at the pool or whatever, the overall privacy is just super important to us. But thank you for your time.
So how much construction would be involved, as Jane asked about the 7-foot height? I mean, I know you said the posts are in the ground, but could those be shortened?
They could be
Could the
shortened.
top be shortened?
They,
Yeah, the tops could be shortened, and the only thing I have on the 7-foot, versus 8-foot, 12 inches is a lot once you look at it, but from the pool standpoint, the pool, the way the lay of the land goes, that pool
goes
is
up.
higher up. So if you're standing at the
little
pool,
bit.
you can see over that with 8-foot. you
or
can't.
even inside the house, you can, because you, as Ms. Jane said, you kind of do have that incline, so even inside the house as well. And then,
Within code, and it's their property. So, I mean, that's the argument. Is it in code? It's their property. It's
Right.
both.
Do you have a problem with the historical, you don't?
I don't think it
sure
detracts
you
from
are.
the site.
Do you want a motion?
I could do it, I would.
I make a motion to approve it based on the fact that I don't think it detracts from the historic integrity of the site.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Just see Ms. Laura. Thank y'all. Now we got exterior changes at 502 East Church Street. Is that y'all again? Yeah, that's us. Good gosh.
might as well get them both on here.
So with,
Wait, let me put.
oh, she's got some.
Thanks. But just make sure Ms. Jane gets one down there.
Thank
We'll be
you.
okay here.
Okay, so us again, we did want to just, I know this only happens once every month or so, so we wanted to get this on as well.
So this came about when we were living at 506 before I got the head football job away from here. We got the opportunity from our neighbor before it was put on the market to buy this. And so as we did, we thought about our goals, and next time that we'll be in Monroe, and hopefully we'll be soon. And so we wanted to take this on as our first home in Monroe to kind of clean up. And you want to go from there?
Yeah, so as Patrick said, we owned 506. Our neighbor, before putting it on the market, approached us and said, hey, would you guys be interested in 502 East Church Street? So we had the opportunity to purchase that. We are not flipping this home. We actually plan to own it for 20, 30 plus years. We do love the Historic Society and the historic home, so when he came to us and asked us if this was of interest to us, we really did want to take him up on that. So when we bought the house, there was already renovations through the years done to the house, granite countertops, different things inside and outside the house. So we wanted to freshen it up a little bit, and we wanted to paint the interior and exterior and also do some floor coverings inside. As we proceeded with this and doing this, we realized that the siding only in the back section of the house and then a couple windows in the back of the house needed to be replaced due to them rotting out. And again, that was only on the new section in the back of the house, which was put in about the 70s or 80s, so not anything on the front of the house or the historic front of the house. So we actually replaced plywood board and batten with board and batten, and then
We replaced it with hardy board and batten.
and then the windows that we replaced were wood windows. We replaced them with wood windows. And then also the current front porch railings, which you can see in the packet as well. And I added some photos in the back of the packet, which are other historic homes that we like for the idea of the back of this, not changing anything on the front. But then also the front porch railings don't look very historic. So those were added on later. So we wanted to request to change those as well. Again, we're not real estate agents or investors or anything like that. We're not flipping and selling this house. We really do want to keep this for long-term. Thank you.
Have you replaced windows in the main structure?
No, ma'am. So those, when we bought the house, those windows, didn't need anything. They weren't rotting. The siding so the front of the house from the road, the side of the house, those windows did not need any changes or anything. That's the historic windows. It was the back section of the house that was probably added on in the 70s or 80s, was not historic. Those were just normal windows, and they were actually rotting, and I think it was just the cheaper kind they put in the 70s.
What about on the back was of the two windows that are on the back?
Yeah, so those were just the double windows.
So those were whoever owned it before us did the addition, they were the
You
classic
enlarged it?
big double windows, so.
They were the double windows, so we just made it a single instead of two doubles.
As you can see in the picture, it's one single window. It's the same size
It
as the
was
double
on
that
both
was on
sides of the
there.
door were the
But there were
doubles.
two doubles, okay.
Yeah, we made it this.
What about the front door?
Yes.
Did you change that?
We did change the front door.
Do you still have the old door?
I don't
Yeah, I
think we
think-
have the front door.
I can double check
Why did
on
you
that.
change the front door?
It was like you couldn't even close it. I mean, you could open and close it, but like it wouldn't close enough to lock or anything like that. So that's why we did change that. That's the only thing we did on the front. So we didn't change any siding, any windows, any railing, anything on the front except the front door. And then the back, then all of the rest is just in the back, not visible from the road.
Do we want to take this one at a time, or?
I almost want to table it, just so I can
Let's
go out
take-
there and look at it.
Yeah, I think you need to.
We should look at it as a group. I mean,
I like what you've put to replace the railings.
Yes.
I don't think these are, you have a craftsman style front of the house, or it's, the post lend a craftsman style air to it. And I'm thinking those banisters might have been replaced. But the front door was very historically correct for this house. And
Could be
the door,
repaired.
yeah, a good carpenter could fix that. The door, now you've got, it looks like a 3/4 French door, and that's just not appropriate for,
Okay.
but you had a beautiful, if you've still
The
got.
front, yeah, the front door, and I believe if we do still have it, you can see that it was rotting in certain sections.
That can be repaired.
Somebody
Okay.
can do that.
An original front door is very critical.
Okay.
Well, we'll fix that for sure.
Can work on that.
Yeah, we're definitely open.
And y'all didn't do that addition on the back?
So the back addition was done in the 70s or 80s. We just replaced rotten siding and rotten windows in the back.
To me, it did not go with the house at all. So I think we.
Well, the
let's just-
board and
Batten
batten
is not-
siding doesn't,
Go.
the board and batten siding shows from Church Street from both sides of your house. And you need the lap siding.
Yeah, you need the consistency to all the way down and not this.
Now, would you be okay,
We're
so the
open to
lap
that.
siding on the side where you can see it from East Church Street and then the back still being, would you want that to be the lap siding where you can't see it from the road, or?
We have to do the whole exterior.
Hold it.
Okay. Yeah, that's something we're open to doing, is definitely the lap siding. Again, our goal is, to preserve this home and
So
the,
you'd be willing to replace and put in the siding?
yeah, the lap siding, yeah.
Y'all will enjoy that much more living there if this is gonna be your home. It would really be such a pretty home if you did that. Right now, it looks like somebody just slapped an addition on it. It didn't go with the home at all. So,
And I do think as, yes, I understand what you're saying. I do think as well with right when we got notified too on this, we stopped everything. We actually had a guy that was gonna paint the exterior. We were like, hey, hold on, we want to go to the Historic Society first, because this is our first time doing this. So we told him, don't paint the whole exterior. We're not somebody that likes crazy colors. We were just going to do kind of really go back with what was on the front and repaint everything. So we were like, okay, well, it's kind of, I get what you're saying right now. It does kind of stick out like a sore thumb with it being kind of the yellow hardy look, which was what concerned me too about, I was telling him, I was like, oh gosh, they're gonna go out there and it's
Well,
yellow.
the thing is, we're not gonna punish you for not knowing, you know,
Yeah.
that,
We'll work with you.
that's my hearing aid.
Trust me.
But
Sorry.
as
It-
far as
It's new, but I
colors,
do want to hear.
we can't advise you on colors, but you've got a beautiful house across the street at 411 Church Street. Okay. And they've done a beautiful job of contrasting
Yeah.
colors.
I really like that home.
Different architectural aspects. That's just one of my favorite houses on Church Street.
And we're delighted that you're willing to take on something that is historical and important. But we want to guide you.
And
you
we
know.
really want that.
And we really would like to work with you on this, and there are a lot of issues here. And I think maybe we should table this and meet with you, and let's see what we can work out. I mean, it's gonna be an economical thing for you, you know, financial thing. And we don't want to break the budget or whatever, but we do want you to, you're so acceptable to wanting it to be right, I can tell. And this is the thing about the board and batten, it is historical, but not to that house. And this is what a lot of the young people don't understand is they think they can just tack on, you think you can just tack on anything, and because it's historical, it works, and that's really not the way, and we want to educate you,
Yeah.
not punish you, okay?
Well, thank you so much for that. Yeah, this was this is obviously the first time we've done this, so
And we're delighted you're doing this. We're
Thank you.
delighted.
And
I
but
think
there are people out there who can,
yeah.
like the front door, and some of us might suggest somebody, but that door can be, I know 400 Church Street, that door had issues.
Okay.
And they worked on that, and they did a beautiful job with that one, too.
Okay.
Patrick, with your beautiful skills, you can fix that front door.
Yeah, we can.
Like, can we table?
So what's our motion? Somebody make one.
I'm moved that we table. Oh, wait, we do have to have outside.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Yes.
Good evening. I'm Elisa Abraham, and I live at 500 Church Street on the other side. It will be 7 years in May since I,
Speak right in there.
sorry. It'll be 7 years in May since I purchased my home there, and I love living on Church Street. I can appreciate that the Stewarts have purchased these properties, but I think it's very, very important before you proceed to understand that those properties are not being used as a home. They're being used as Airbnbs. And I came to Church Street, and with full understanding, it's not a subdivision, but I have found community there. And I am feeling growingly anxious over what is transpiring next to me and another door down. I really would encourage you to think of the value of us having neighbors on Church Street. As Mr. Johnson pointed out, he wants a neighbor, and I do too. I don't believe that the Stewarts are being forthright about their intentions for the property. In fact, in 3 separate occasions, the Stewarts have approached me to buy pieces of my property or my home itself. So I feel like there's just a march to the end of the block to create a business. And I want to feel comfortable living on Church Street. So I think it's telling that they did so much of this work without asking. And now I appreciate that you want to work with him, but the purpose is not for them to enjoy their home. They don't live there. And I wonder why you would want to work with them to help them to create a business on Church Street when many of us live there and want a community there. So that's really all I have to say. So I hope it would give you pause and you'll think before.
Well, we don't get to say anything about businesses. We just get to say, hey, that's historically accurate.
I was gonna say, you
That's a
just
city
want-
council issue, not a historic preservation.
You need to get on the list at city council.
Absolutely.
That's who would make those decisions. We just do the exterior structural appearance.
I understand.
And where do you live on Church Street?
I live at 500. I live on the other side.
I grew up at 400, so
Did you?
I have a vested interest in Church Street too. So
Yes.
go to your city council member or go to
City
the next
council.
city council meeting. Get your name on their agenda.
Yes, ma'am.
Then all we have is to do the exterior of the house.
We can't
We want
control
it
what they're doing with
be
the
right,
inside.
Yes.
Yes. I just urge you to consider, first it's permission for a fence, and then what, and then what. So, I live there, and I really do live there, and I want to stay there. I've enjoyed raising my boys there. And like Mr. Johnson, I'd like a neighbor. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick, is there a zoning issue for Airbnbs in neighborhoods?
Currently, we don't have any regulations on the books for Airbnb, so.
Well, if it's being run as a business, though, that would be, Sparrow Hill is an Airbnb, and it's right on the corner of Church Street. So you've got kind of a business feel going on that side of the street. You've got the Gray Girls law office there, and then it starts, kind of
Going down.
professional all the way up to, until it becomes residential. So I think maybe it might be a zoning issue to consider as well.
Yep, we've discussed it, we just have not instituted any ordinance regarding Airbnbs at this time, but it's on the radar to be addressed in the future.
Well-
Right, still, it just all boils down to
Currently, yeah, this is
We-
a
we
single-family
can help.
residential home.
maintain a current historic structure is all we can do.
Well,
That's our authority.
who needs to address that? Then planning and zoning or city council? Would it go to planning and zoning
Go to
first?
planning and zoning for it to be rezoned, and then city
But
council.
I mean, somebody like she did with issues, should she go to the planning and zoning?
Yeah, basically, she brought it to my attention at this point. We'll handle it there, outside of the HBC
Right, 'cause
consideration.
we have nothing to do with that.
So it's, like I said, it's on the radar. We'll be happy to hear from you at council meeting if you wanted to come there and sign up for public comments. And any input would be welcome and considered.
So we got a motion to table over here from Ms. Fay, and do I have a second?
I second that we
Ms.
table.
Jane says table. All in favor of tabling 502 Church Street, say aye.
Aye.
All right, so y'all have to get with them, because this is
Meeting.
my last one, so y'all have to deal with that one. All right,
And just to be clear, when you table it, you have to do it to a specific meeting date, which obviously would be next month, but
Next month.
just make that clear.
okay, so table it till the May.
May HBC meeting,
But we can meet with them before then.
of course.
Yeah,
So it'll be tabled to the May HPC meeting.
this week if we can.
Okay. All right, so let's see what we got now. Let me get back up to the top. I think that's all the COAs. These iPads are slow.
Mine's dead.
Is it?
It always dies.
All right, is there any old business we need to attend to? Anybody?
Yes, the letter from 200 Walton Street.
There is a presentation under new business still.
Correct. So we'll, when we finish old business, we'll move to new business.
Oh,
So
The letter, Laura, don't we need a response to the 200 Walton Street, the shutters? You know, we wrote them a letter, and they wrote us a letter. But don't we need to respond to that, or
What
did
did that
you,
letter say?
did you request it? They come here. What was the deal?
I asked that they come before you, and they have not responded to that.
So they have been told, okay.
Yes, I can send a reminder as well.
You did send a reminder?
I will, I can.
Okay, any other old business? Great. Under new business, we have some guests here tonight from the University of Georgia. If y'all would like to come up and tell us what you have found in the Find It survey.
Well, this is a small group, but can you all hear me?
Yes, sir, I can. Ms. Fay, can you hear this gentleman speaking? Okay.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you for having me here this evening. It's a privilege to be here. My name is Eric Reisman, and I am the Find It Program Coordinator. This gentleman to my right is Gabe Dobbins. He's one of my field surveyors. And I'm just here to apprise you of our involvement with the ongoing survey in the city of Monroe in terms of what we found, and we also have some recommendations for you. This will be a short presentation. It'll be about 10, 12 minutes. Okay, the first thing I'm going to talk about is our objective and scope, what our involvement is here, what we're doing. Well, first off, we were contacted by the city to survey 2 existing National Register Historic Districts. You have, I believe, 9 National Register Historic Districts, but the 2 that we are responsible for is the East Marrable Street and a little bit to the south, North Broad Street Historic District. So all together in its entirety, about 70 buildings. Now, as you're all aware, this is part of a multi-year effort by the city of Monroe to survey all historic resources. If you look at the map, it's kind of color-coded into quadrants, and the intention, as I understand it, is that each year a different phase will be done, in part with CLG funding. And right now, as we speak, for federal fiscal year 2021-22, the southeast quadrant is being surveyed, which is phase 1. And that's being done by WLA Studios, which is a CRM firm based out of Athens. Now, what are we doing for you all on behalf of the city? Well, Find It is responsible for producing the following. We are responsible for producing 2 sets of survey forms, photographs. Each resource will have 3 photographs taken of it from different angles, and these will be available both with the survey forms and in digital format. All the data that we accrue in the field is going to be entered into NARGIS, which is the state database, the State Historic Resource Database. And we're also doing a spreadsheet inventory that basically puts this all together so that way you have a means of viewing this and trying to make sense of the data, which is very useful when you're a line of work. And finally, we're also responsible for Survey Map. Now let me talk a little bit about what Find It is and what Find It represents. Find It was founded in 2001, and we are part of UGA's public outreach program. And basically what we are is we're a partnership between the University of Georgia, the Georgia Historic Preservation Division, and Georgia Transmission Corporation, which is a statewide utility company. They're nonprofit. And basically what we do is we survey Georgia's cultural resources on behalf of GTC for the purposes of their review and compliance work. And where UGA fits into this, and what ultimately led to the creation of Find It, is we do the work for GTC, and meanwhile UGA's Historic Preservation Program has an on-site test laboratory that provides on-the-job training for historic preservation students so they can take the principles they're learning in the program and put them to practice. Okay, so like I said, we've been around since 2001. We've done 20 years of survey, and in that time, we have surveyed 63 counties on behalf of GTC, and we have documented over 21,000 resources, which is not an inconsiderable sum. The state database that I just mentioned, NARGIS, currently has about 285,000 resources. So we've done about about 7%. Now, GTC, our obligations for GTC, that constitutes the crux of our work, but because we are a branch of public outreach for the University of Georgia, specifically the College of Environment and Design, wherever possible, we try to engage with communities in order to do survey work, not just in terms of furthering our mission, but also in terms of forging partnerships and trying to promote the activities of the Historic Preservation Program. What are some examples of the partnerships we've sought out in recent years? Well, we've done survey work for other state agencies. Right now, we're doing a very large project down in Macon for GDOT. We've worked with local governments, the city of Monroe, like we're doing right now, the city of Hartwell a couple years ago. We've also partnered with neighborhood associations and historical societies to do surveys. And this is an example of our roster of recent work. As you can see, we are plenty busy with work for GTC. We're currently engaged in a multi-year survey of Athens-Clarke County because we're talking about maybe 10,000 resources. It's been our biggest project to date, but we're also undertaking a windshield survey in the city of Macon, and that's a project of equal magnitude to the ACC survey. So that is also going to engage us for multiple years. But it's my preference to work on smaller projects such as these where students can be a part of the project and part of the process from beginning to end, which hasn't been the case for some of our larger projects. Okay, our methodology. How do we go about approaching this project? And I think when I'm speaking here, I'm not just speaking for Find It, but I'm speaking for any cultural resource management firm that you would possibly engage to carry out this work. So this is a facsimile of what any CRM firm would do. Well, the first thing we do before we even set one foot in the field is we try to collect as much historical data as possible.
Can I ask you just one question?
Yes, ma'am.
You're only dealing with what's already been established. You're not trying to make it larger, is that correct?
That's correct, but I will speak to that in terms of recommendations at the end of my presentation.
Okay.
But anyway, we try our best to try to collect as much historic data to try to figure out the background for the historic resources that we're responsible for surveying beforehand. What are some examples of historic data that architectural historians rely on a regular basis? Well, we look at Sanborn fire insurance maps. These were produced by the Sanborn Company from the 1880s up in the 1960s, and they're very, very nifty little tools for architectural historians in terms of determining when things were built, how they changed. We also have access to a whole bunch of digital imagery now in the last 10 years that we haven't been privy to in the past because everything is digitized online. UGA's digital map library has a whole bunch of high-quality historic aerial imagery that you can consult in order to try to, again, determine what was built and when it was built and how it was changed. So we looked at that. And finally, we also looked at some background information. All 9 of your National Register districts were nominated and placed on the register in late 1983. So we pulled those from the Park Service, and we looked at what was there, what was contributing, to get an idea of what was there in 1983 as opposed to what we're finding now in 2022. And finally, we also looked at tax assessor data. Tax assessor data in terms of construction date and in terms of additions, it's an imperfect tool when it comes to dealing with historic resources. However, again, it's another layer of information, so sometimes you can find out things that you weren't aware of before by using tax assessor data. Okay, let's talk about our field survey. Again, Find It its primary mission is to train UGA students in the rigors of architectural survey work. Now, the way we do that is we offer a limited number of summer internships and graduate assistantships during the regular academic year, and those are very important. However, they have limited reach because we can only offer those opportunities to a limited number of students. So, speaking to our mission of public outreach and community engagement, the way we decided to structure this project is we made it into a volunteer day. So I put out a request for volunteers within the Historic Preservation Program, and we got about 5 or 6 volunteers, and they were all paired with our experienced Find It surveyors. I have a crew of 4 who have been with me for the better part of a year, so they pretty much know the ropes. And they went out on February 28th, the last day of February, which was a beautiful day, and each of my field surveyors took on 1 or 2 volunteers, and they split the work among them. So the volunteers were able to get an idea of what we do, what we encounter on a regular basis, and in addition to that, they were able to get a feel for, is this something I would like to do? Would I like to pursue an opportunity to find it? Or perhaps thinking a little bit more into the future, would I be interested in being an architectural historian or an architectural surveyor for a CRM firm? So the work that was carried out on February 28th, where all the photographs were taken and the survey forms were filled out. And here's some pictures from out in the field to try to give you an idea of our general workflow and work processes. Like I said, we had teams of 2, and the workflow was split roughly 50-50. So the surveyors teed off between actually filling out the forms in real time and taking the photography. And to give you an idea, or a rather loose facsimile of what our forms are going to look like, because the deliverables call for 2 sets of printed out survey forms. This is our stock form that we use in the field. What we are going to be doing is we're going to be modifying this for your purposes. We basically added a 4th page that will have the pictures on it, in addition to some historic comments, because we tried to compile as much background information as possible, especially considering your National Register nominations for these 2 districts date to 1983, and the standards for documentation that the Park Service requires for National Register nominations has changed considerably in the 4 decades. Now, going back to photographs, and this is not an example from Monroe, but each resource we are required to take 3 photographs. We're required to take one that's head-on, which is referred to as the facade, and 2 that are kind of angled that show the facade and a side elevation, and these are referred to as obliques. Now, let me talk specifically about the resources that you actually have in these 2 districts, because there are some common themes, because most of the development in both of these districts took place between 1900 and 1930, and there are some prevailing architectural house types and styles that were very common during this era, which are well represented in these 2 districts. Before I proceed, let me just elaborate a little bit on the difference between type versus style. When I say type, I'm referring to basically the house form, how it's laid out, and the overall shape. When I'm referring to style, I'm referring to the stylistic elements that are added on top of this form that give it a unique feeling. Well, in terms of 1-story house types, and I'll delineate between 1 and 2-story house types, there were several common house types. First off, you had a lot of gabled L cottages, which are basically where you have one rectangular ring meeting another at a perpendicular angle. You have a lot of New South cottages, which are a house type that's very common in this region of the country. And you also have Queen Anne cottages, which they look similar to New South cottages, but they're usually characterized by a projection on the front elevation, a bump out, if you will, and a corresponding bump out, if not more bump outs, in the side elevations. Now, in terms of 2-story house types, you have a small number of Queen Anne houses, and the Queen Anne houses are very similar to the Queen Anne cottages. The main difference is that they're, the main difference is that they're 2-story instead of 1-story houses. You also have a select number of Georgian houses, which is a very simple, straightforward house plan. And basically what it is you have a center hall. The original floor plan had 2 rooms on each side, and a Georgian house is just like a Georgian cottage, except again, it's 2 stories as opposed to 1. Other common forms, I didn't bring it up in the presentation, but you have a lot of bungalows. Again, bungalows were very popular during this particular era of construction. But in terms of house styles, you have a lot of craftsmen. In fact, that is the most common house style that you have in both of the districts. Now, when we think of craftsmen, we're probably thinking of something that looks like this house here at 108 William Street. The craftsman architectural style can manifest itself in many different ways. You can see it applied to 2-story forms or different 1-story forms, as you see here. Other common styles that are prevalent, and these 3 are in the North Broad District, is you have neoclassical, which is a very prominent form of architecture from the early years of the 20th century, and it's characterized by full-height porticos, and unlike some of the historic antecedents, you usually have like a side wing here, like, for example, the house at 217 North Jackson Street. Other architectural styles that are represented are Queen Anne, and again, Queen Anne style, and I can't emphasize this enough, we're delineating between that and the Queen Anne form. The Queen Anne form is just the shape, but you can have a Queen Anne house that but might not be a Queen Anne style. But these three here that I'm illustrating for the sake of argument, these are houses that are not only Queen Anne in form, but they are also Queen Anne in style. Okay, some findings and recommendations that we're going to prepare for you when we finish our work. Speaking of work, we have entered all this data into Nargis. We are currently in the process of entering the data into the survey forms. When we did the survey forms out in the field, it was all done via handwriting. What we basically did was we created a typable PDF, and we're going to fill those out, and we're going to print those out for your records. But speaking of our findings and recommendations, and these are just some general findings and recommendations. We will elaborate on them when the work is done. But both of these districts still retain a high degree of architectural integrity. It's almost inevitable, even with the presence of a local historic district, that just with the passage of time, integrity might diminish over time. And this is what happened with both of the districts. However, both districts retain enough contributing resources that they would still be eligible as National Register Historic Districts. Speaking to that directly, let's talk about the East Marable Street Historic District, which is the smaller of the two. When that district was listed on the National Register in 1983, it had 14 resources, 12 contributing and 2 non-contributing. Now, it's a little bit more of a marginal case. You have 7 contributing and you have 6 non-contributing. If you're asking why this does not tally up, it is because the brief of our contract, and this is in part a reflection of what the Georgia Historic Preservation Division wants, is when they do survey of potential districts, they do not survey resources that are under 40 years of age. In some states, it's different. In some states, if you do a district or a survey of a district, you just survey everything, whether it's contributing or non-contributing, but that's not the way Georgia HPD wants survey governed. So there were 3 resources in that district that we did not survey because they were more contemporary. So by a small margin, you have more contributing than non-contributing resources. And for the purposes of the National Park Service, what they require for a National Register Historic District is that you just have a majority of contributing resources. It can be as simple as a majority plus 1, which indeed it is the case for this district, but that is the requirements. Now with North Broad, which is a much larger district, the issue is a little bit more complicated, because when that district was listed in 1983, it had 60 resources. It now has 68 resources because there's been a lot of newer construction in the form of apartment complexes in the intervening 40 years. However, you still have a high percentage of resources that contribute. You have 49 contributing resources, which means you have 19 non-contributing. So for all intents and purposes, still 70, 75%. So that district has fared well. So some recommendations that we're making, or we're imploring you to consider when the survey is done, because keep in mind that our efforts are part of a larger multi-year effort to try to survey all the resources that are in the city. What I would recommend to you all after the survey is complete, whenever that may be, perhaps consider updating some of your nominations to add more historic context. So you have that for the record. Some examples of that would be you can use our data from the survey and use that to create comprehensive architectural descriptions. Your National Register Historic District nominations do not have an itemized list of the resources in your districts. That was fairly commonplace in the early 1980s, but like I said before, the standards for historic districts have changed markedly in terms of what not just state historic preservation offices require, but what the National Park Service demands as well. Other comments and takeaways. additional information that you can possibly add to a National Register nomination, we have some revised dates of construction that, again, are based on they're based on additional background information that whoever was responsible for preparing the nomination back in 1983, information they were probably not privy to. And finally, my last thought here, and this you could probably only take into consideration again once the entirety of the survey is complete, but if you do elect to update your National Register nominations, for some of them, you might want to consider updating the period of significance. As I mentioned at the beginning of my talk, the period of significance for the two districts we are responsible for is roughly 1900 to 1930. Now, in certain districts, it might make sense to keep the existing period of significance. For example, the East Marable Street District, because the justification for that period of significance is that the contributing resources in that district, as it was listed in 1983, represent particular architectural forms such as like Queen Anne houses, New South cottages, gable L fronts, and what they were saying was that the newer homes, the craftsman-style homes, or I think there's a Tudor house there as well, because those forms were different, they did not contribute to the character of the district. However, that's not the case with North Broad, because in the North Broad Historic District, which is a lot larger, you have a whole medley of architecture. The argument that they are making in that nomination for the period of significance, to paraphrase, it basically says that after 1930, the quality of construction dropped off, which I don't know how you can go about proving that, because mostly what you're seeing here in both districts is you're seeing wood frame construction. Most of the houses were constructed using the same fashion, which is balloon frame technology. So I would imagine it was more an argument based upon what people in 1983 saw as being historic, as opposed to what we would see or perceive as being historic here now in 2022. So those are going to be our recommendations when we finish preparing our materials and send that over to you. I'd be happy to take any questions if you have any.
I have a question.
Certainly.
Would adding more non-contributing structures, if any more were added to the Marable Street district, would that jeopardize the district?
Not necessarily, because again, the Park Service, they just look for a district where there's a majority of contributing resources. So if you were interested in going this route, what you could potentially do is you could potentially do it under the perspective of, we want to update the nomination so that way the state of Georgia and the National Park Service has more contemporary information. And even though the nomination itself would probably reflect the fact that there was a lower percentage of contributing resources, you would still have what you need in order for it to be a viable district.
Thank you.
Sure, certainly.
I have a question because I live in a historic house.
Yes, ma'am.
The Broad Street ends at my house, corner of Day and Walton Street. And I don't understand why that was not carried on through, because many of those houses were built in 1924 and prior to 1930, as you were saying.
Yeah, I have the nomination actually here with me. I've read through all 9 of your nominations, and I don't know the reason myself. And again, I think it's one of those things that you just have to chalk up to the fact that the standards for documentation, not just the standards of documentation, but in terms of how nominations were reviewed, the process 40 years ago, they were just subject to a much lower degree of scrutiny than they are now. But speaking to your point, that it might be something you want to consider as well as a commission and as a community once the entirety of this survey is complete. And when I say the entirety of this survey, I'm not talking about the 2 districts that we are responsible for surveying, but rather all 4 phases of your COG-sponsored survey. You might want to consider in terms of updating the nominations, but also having a boundary increase, because if you're looking at revising the period of significance and you revise those dates to more contemporary time, that's going to bring in a whole bunch of contiguous resources that would now be considered eligible. But I think in terms of exploring that option, and I think it should be an option you should consider, you're going to have to do that on a case-by-case basis. In other words, district by district.
Well, would you consider a date that would be a cutoff, a good cutoff date, 19, whatever, 50, 60, or you want to go back to 1940?
Well, let's be clear. Everything that is over 50 years of age at this point is potentially eligible for the National Register of Historic Places. But I think in terms of expanding your period of significance, it probably wouldn't abut near the 50-year barrier. I think what you guys would look at, since these are well-developed areas, is just when, I guess, the construction essentially tapered off. So in other words, what you would look for is the overriding character of the district, and in essence, the non-contributing resources would be the ones that were built as contemporary infill. So I think that would be the factor that you take into consideration. Case in point, speaking to the North Broad District, when that district was created in 1983, it was mainly all residential. However, now a lot of the new infill, it's a different type of residential. It's apartment complexes. Even though some of the apartment complexes are bearing down on 40 years of age, that might not fit in with the overall theme of the district.
I have a question relating to what Faye just asked. In another group, we had a city council member present to ask questions about the historic districts. And the one she's talking about, Walton Street, stops, and the circle is not included.
Oh, and past my house is not included.
Yeah, and he said that to get that included in the historic district, each resident would have to agree to it.
Well, let me make another, I'm sorry, did I interrupt someone? The overlap from the microphone. Let me make another distinction here just to be clear. There is a difference between a National Register Historic District, which is what I'm speaking to, and your local historic district.
Right.
And that's, the difference is that all the governance takes place at the local level. Now, a lot of communities, though not all, the way they structure their local historic districts is that they try to mirror the boundaries of whatever the National Register District is for the sake of logistics. That doesn't necessarily have to be the case. In terms of what you guys wish to do, in terms of taking the information we're presenting, you have a number of options available. You could just update the National Register nominations and keep the local historic districts as is, or you could go the other route, which would be take this information and use it to expand your criteria for what constitutes your local historic districts. But either way, whichever decision you make, that's at your discretion. Does that answer your question?
Could I ask a question? It's not germane to the historicity of anything, but would it be possible to, for you to email this presentation to Laura?
Sure.
And we can maybe disseminate it if anybody had any interest in looking through it. All right, thank you.
Yes, please. That's great.
And another question, these are two districts, but are you in the future plan to do all 9, correct?
Well, we are just contracted to do 2. When we were initially approached by the city, it was to do a different area and a different set of districts. Right now, with our workload, because again, we are not a CRM firm, we are completely dependent upon student labor, and in terms of their limited availability, because I can tell you one thing, graduate students are extremely busy. It would probably have to be on a case-by-case basis, so we would love to work more on behalf of the city of Monroe, but it would have to be a project small enough in scale that we can associate it and assimilate it with our infrastructure.
Thank you for your work.
Anybody else?
Gabe, did you have anything you'd like to say on behalf of Find It?
But I guess on behalf of Find It and the Find It surveyors, since the rest of them couldn't be here, they all had late class tonight, actually. We just like to say thank you for having us. It's not often, as Eric stated, Find It is a hands-on experience that the graduate students get the chance to go out into the field and do survey of different types of architectural styles and types. It is not often that we get to go into a historic district at such a lovely town and do surveys in these particular areas. So for us, it was a pleasure, and it was also a wonderful time to include volunteers and other graduate students who had an interest. So on behalf of myself and the other surveyors, we just say thank you for having us.
Thank y'all for coming out here and doing it.
Appreciate you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Any other new business? Well, Ms. Laura, anything over there?
I do have
We
a
set a
question for
time to work
Patrick.
with them, or what time
I'm
is it?
concerned about the Church Street residents and the Airbnb
I am too,
things.
very.
Very concerned about that. Can that be addressed sooner rather than later with the city council members or?
I'd like to speak to that, Pat. Sure. They're literally the only two we have in the city.
But I'm afraid from what the lady across the street said, they're looking to expand and it just.
I don't think so. I mean, they don't own the woman's property that complained, so. The two that they have now, I mean, that property would not be the concern of an expansion, but there potentially could be other ones in the future. I mean, they did state in the meeting right here tonight on record that they want to live in that house. So, if they choose not to, then I think they're free for public accountability and starts to dwindle like that, you know? That's, you know, if you say something in a public meeting and you don't do it, the Airbnb that I know that's next door with the property, with the fence, it has been an historic Airbnb for years. And Pat can probably speak more of this historically, but, I mean, the city does not have an ordinance against them. And as long as it's occupied by a single-family resident, there's no zoning violation occurring.
Back to what Jane said, it seems like that area of Church Street, the business section is just kind of going on down, headed east.
Sparrow Hill is a bed and breakfast, so it's not an Airbnb. It's a traditional bed and breakfast, if I'm not mistaken. That's
What
correct.
I'm addressing is the fact that there's the attorney's office. I mean, it just,
Well, that's stemming from downtown. As you move toward downtown, those are all non-residential uses as you cross Madison right there.
yeah, I wouldn't want to live next door to an
Well, we
Airbnb.
have one on Walton Street.
You have an Airbnb? Sure.
We can't
I
prove,
looked up all the ones in the city.
do what?
I'm not aware of one on Walton Street, but I'd like to know which one it is.
I've talked to
I'll tell you which one she's talking about.
But y'all, these people that have moved here and worked on their homes and tried to fix up Church Street, and they're doing a great job. I would hate to know that Airbnbs were coming and doing that because it's young college kids. They have to be 18 and older, but they make a mess. They're loud, they're noisy. They leave trash everywhere, and it's not fair to these established residents that have been there for 6 years and have worked on their homes to let young people come in here and only want to make money. I think there needs to be some thought put into that.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll take your concerns under advisement and talk to city administrator, council members, code and planning committee, and see how they want to proceed. I mean, we don't have a great proliferation. One thing we don't want is a great proliferation of Airbnbs without some way to regulate them. So
Airbnbs are.
your concerns are noted, and we'll figure out what we can do to address it.
Started the Hatfields and the McCoys on Church Street.
Oh, I guarantee you that had started a long time before that.
Yeah, and I know it's a big problem in Decatur and Atlanta area.
But you stop and think about next door, and, I mean, it could be every other day, people in and out, different people. I just, and Church Street got the shaft with the traffic things that they just ruined the street with.
Well, while I was parked there viewing taking my little view of all the houses that I was supposed to look at before I came tonight, that fence, I was sitting right beside it, and then, you know, a couple walks out and gets in the pool and goes swimming and all that. If I had small children next door, you know, and they were
Strangers.
strangers, not neighbors, I wouldn't like it.
I wouldn't either.
I mean, it's almost like an apartment almost. And
Not an apartment, a motel.
motel. But I just think that we need to
That,
thought into what's going forward.
but that exceeds us.
Yeah, duly noted. We'll take it up
it
with the
does,
planning,
but
planning and code committee and see how they want to proceed.
Is
As
there,
a citizen, it includes us.
is there any other new business?
No, but we sure are gonna miss you.
And I'm gonna miss y'all. It's been fun. And when I retire in exactly 2 years, if you need me back, please call me. I will be. No, I am the odd couple, but I'm not in the odd couple. But y'all,
You know when we're going to talk to the city council, can you?
Sometime in,
sure, I'll come up. I'm happy to help y'all do anything you want.
sometime in May.
Well, y'all gonna have to let me know early, because
May is
you know how May is for school teachers. But anyway, I've enjoyed it. Please call me if you need me again. Can I get a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I so move.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Good luck.
Oh,